The rain was relentless that night in Seattle, mirroring the storm brewing inside me. Bertram, a 43-year-old architect, sat in my car outside what used to be our home, the home I designed with love and care for my wife Meredith and our two children. The vibrant colors I'd carefully chosen for the walls now seemed mocking, a grim reminder of a life that was a carefully constructed lie. It started subtly, a shift in Meredith's routine, late nights at the office, a detached demeanor. We'd been together for 18 years, married for 15. I knew her like the back of my hand, or so I thought. The woman I loved, the mother of my children, had become a ghost, a stranger sharing my bed. I tried talking to her, expressing my concerns, but she brushed them aside, blaming work stress, hormonal imbalances, anything but the truth. I wanted to believe her desperately. I loved her fiercely, unconditionally. The thought of her with someone else was a physical ache, a dull, throbbing pain that never seemed to subside. The first real crack in the facade appeared a few weeks ago. Meredith claimed she was going to a conference in Portland for her job as a marketing manager. I offered to drive her to the airport, but she insisted on taking a cab, saying she had an early start. Something felt off, a nagging unease that wouldn't go away. So against my better judgment, I checked her credit card statements. There it was, a charge for a hotel in downtown Seattle, the same weekend as the supposed conference. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of our home. I wanted to deny it, to find some logical explanation, but deep down I knew. I spent the next few days in a daze, going through the motions at work, barely able to focus. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. The image of Meredith with another man haunted my waking hours. I decided to hire a private investigator. It felt like a betrayal of our marriage, a sign of my own failure, but I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful. The investigator, a woman named Isolde, was professional and discreet. She promised to provide me with concrete evidence, whatever it may be. 3 days later, Isolde called. She had something to show me. I met her at a small cafe downtown, my hands clammy, my stomach churning. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside were photographs. Meredith, laughing, holding hands with a man I'd never seen before. They were entering the hotel, the same hotel from the credit card statement. The photos were clear, undeniable. The man was tall, well-built, with dark hair and piercing blue eyes. Isolde had identified him as Barnaby, a consultant who worked with Meredith's company. Apparently, they'd been having an affair for months. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. My vision blurred, my ears rang. I felt like I was drowning, gasping for air in a sea of despair. The pain was unbearable, a crushing weight on my chest. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to destroy everything in my path, but I didn't. I sat there numb, staring at the photographs, trying to process the reality of what I was seeing. My wife, the woman I loved, had betrayed me in the most profound way imaginable. I spent the next few days in a fog, barely functioning. I told my boss I needed some time off, claiming I was sick. I couldn't face anyone, couldn't bear the thought of explaining what was happening. I stayed home, alone, replaying the photographs in my mind, torturing myself with the details of their affair. I knew I had to confront Meredith, but I didn't know how. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, but I was afraid of what she would say, afraid of confirming my worst fears. So I waited, gathering my strength, preparing myself for the inevitable confrontation. The opportunity came a few days later. Meredith said she was going out for dinner with a client. I knew she was lying. I followed her, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched as she met Barnaby at a restaurant downtown. They kissed, embraced, their bodies pressed together in a way that used to be reserved for me. I couldn't take it anymore. I stormed into the restaurant, my face flushed with anger, my voice trembling with rage. "Meredith," I shouted, my voice echoing through the room. "How could you do this to me? To us?" Meredith's face paled. She looked like she'd seen a ghost. Barnaby stood up, his eyes narrowing, his fists clenching. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "I'm her husband," I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "The man you've been betraying." A tense silence fell over the restaurant. Everyone was staring at us, their faces a mixture of shock and fascination. Meredith tried to speak, to explain, but I cut her off. "Don't," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "I don't want to hear your lies anymore." I turned to Barnaby. "You," I said, pointing my finger at him. Stay away from my wife. If I ever see you with her again, you'll regret it. I grabbed Meredith's arm and dragged her out of the restaurant. We drove home in silence, the tension in the car thick enough to cut with a knife. When we arrived, I finally broke the silence. I know everything, I said, my voice cold and hard. I know about the hotel, the dinners, the lies. I know about Barnaby. Meredith started to cry, her tears streaming down her face. Bertram, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I didn't mean for this to happen. It just happened, I repeated, my voice incredulous. You had an affair for months and it just happened. You lied to me, betrayed me, and it just happened. I know I messed up, she said, her voice pleading. But I still love you, Bertram. I want to make things right. Please give me another chance. I looked at her, at the woman I had loved for so long, and I felt nothing. The love was gone, replaced by a cold, empty void. It's too late, Meredith, I said, my voice devoid of emotion. I can't forgive you. I can't trust you. It's over. I filed for divorce the next day. The process was long and painful, filled with lawyers, paperwork, and bitter accusations. Meredith fought me every step of the way, trying to salvage what was left of our marriage, but I was resolute. I couldn't stay with her, not after what she had done. The trust was broken, the foundation of our relationship shattered beyond repair. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. I moved out of the house we had shared, leaving behind the memories, the dreams, the life we had built together. I started over in a new apartment in a new city. I focused on my work, pouring all my energy into my projects. I tried to forget about Meredith, about the pain, about the betrayal, but it wasn't easy. The scars ran deep, a constant reminder of the woman who had broken my heart. I struggled with feelings of anger, resentment, and bitterness. I couldn't understand why she had done it, why she had risked everything for a fleeting moment of passion. I eventually learned that Barnaby had left Meredith shortly after our confrontation. He was married himself, with a family of his own. He had no intention of leaving his wife for Meredith. She was just a conquest, a temporary distraction. Meredith was devastated. She lost her husband, her lover, and her reputation. She was ostracized by her friends and family. She was alone with nothing but her regrets. I felt a pang of sympathy for her, but it was fleeting. She had made her choices, and she had to live with the consequences. I couldn't forgive her, but I could try to move on, to rebuild my life, to find happiness again. It took time, but I eventually started to heal. I met new people, made new friends, and discovered new passions. I learned to trust again, to love again, to open my heart to the possibility of a future filled with joy and fulfillment. One evening, about 2 years after the divorce, I received a phone call from Meredith. Her voice was weak and trembling. She told me she had been diagnosed with cancer. It was advanced and the prognosis was grim. She asked if I would come to see her. I hesitated, unsure of what to say or do. But in the end, I couldn't refuse. I owed her that much. After all the years we had spent together, I visited her in the hospital. She was pale and frail, her once vibrant eyes now dull and lifeless. She apologized for everything she had done, for the pain she had caused. She said she understood why I couldn't forgive her, but she hoped that one day I would find it in my heart to remember the good times we had shared. I sat with her for hours, talking, reminiscing, sharing stories. I didn't forgive her, not completely, but I did find a measure of peace. I realized that holding onto the anger and resentment was only hurting me. It was time to let go, to move on, to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made. Meredith passed away a few weeks later. I attended her funeral, along with her family and friends. It was a sad and somber occasion, a final farewell to a woman who had once been the center of my world. As I stood there watching her casket being lowered into the ground, I couldn't help but wonder what could have been. If she hadn't cheated, if she had been honest with me, if we had worked through our problems together, could we have saved our marriage? Could we have had a happy ending? I'll never know the answer to those questions. But I do know that I learned a valuable lesson from the experience. I learned the importance of trust, honesty, and communication in a relationship. I learned that love is not enough, that it takes work, commitment, and a willingness to forgive. And I learned that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope for a brighter future. That even after the most devastating betrayal, it is possible to heal, to rebuild, and to find happiness again. Now, sitting here in the rain, I realize that the house, the memories, the pain don't define me. I am Bertram, an architect, a father, a survivor. And I will keep building, keep creating, keep living, no matter what life throws my way. I drove away that night, leaving the past behind me. The rain had stopped and the first rays of dawn were beginning to break through the clouds. A new day was dawning, a new beginning, and I was ready to embrace it.